third chapter of the book of Yoel. The first two chapters, he warns Jewish people about the incoming swarm of locusts, the destruction that's going to come about. And at the end of the second chapter, however, they have done tshuva, and God will forgive them, and things will return back to not just normal, but very good. And that's where chapter 3 begins. Eshpoch et ruchi al kol basar v'nibu b'neichem uvenotechem zikneichem chalumot yichalomun bachurechem chezionot yiru. So God says, after that, I will pour my spirit on you. Your sons and daughters will get prophecy. Your elders will dream. Your youths will see visions. And this sounds kind of like going back to the Torah, when Moshe asked God to have more and more prophets, and Yeshua got so upset. Eldad, Medad, Mitnabim, B'machaneh. What's going on, Moshe? This is supposed to be your place. And Moshe says, it would be wonderful if there were all prophets of Bnei Yisrael, that everybody could communicate with God. And so that's what's being said here. But not just on the Jews, also the male and the female slaves. So you could say whether this is an Eved Ivri or an Eved Knani. What it's saying is everybody, doesn't matter where you are in this class, caste system, in society, everybody is going to have a greater vision of God than has had in the past. Vanatati moftim bashamayim uva'aretz dam va'esh v'timrot ashan. And at that time, I will put great symbols in the sky, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. And of course, that verse is used in the Pesach Haggadah, when we're talking about all the different wonders and all of the different miracles that happened in Egypt. The sun will turn into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day. So here it's difficult to understand. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Right? It seems to be that we're in the midst of saying we're talking about a great day and a great thing that's going to happen. So presumably this is talking about what's going to happen to the enemies of Israel, what's going to happen to the non-believers, what's going to happen to the people who don't repent. Right? It doesn't seem that this is just some cataclysmic event that's going to destroy everybody and everything, but certainly the people who remain close to God will be able to survive. Now, this phrase "Lifnei bo yom Hashem hagadol v'hanora" is used not just here; it's used in other prophets. It's used by Malachi and others. Pasuk verse 5. Pasuk Hey. Vayakol asher yikra b'shem Adonai yimalei ki b'Hartzion u'v'Yerushalayim tieh pleita kasher amar Adonai uvasridim asher Adonai korei. But everyone who calls out in God's name, as we just said, will escape. And there will be a remnant on Har Tzion, Yerushalayim, as God promises. And everybody who calls out to God will be saved from this purge and this plague and this destruction. Very short chapter that we have today, and a chapter that demonstrates, God's returning, and if you want to put it, a messianic era, according to think about I guess different ways. Ramban, Nachmanides talks about the ultimate idea in Judaism is dveikut, is being close to God. You say that Maimonides, who thought differently, was irrational still. You go up to the heavens, and your knowledge of God allows you to understand more of what's going on in the heavens. And this chapter says that we'll know God. God will appear to us. God will talk to us. The wicked will be gotten rid of. And so it's a really, in that way, very much a messianic prophecy, a prophecy about the end of days. As we said about Yoel just a couple of times, Yoel, we don't know who he is. We don't know where he lived. We know nothing about him. But one thing that we seem to know about him is he was a prophet, during the time of the Beit HaMikdash, because it talks about in the earlier chapters with the locust swarms, how there's not going to be sacrifices, all the animals are not going to be able to be fed. And here too, it talks about Beit Hashem, and here too, it talks about Jerusalem. So presumably, belief is that he lives during the time of the first Beit HaMikdash, according to many, and he is a prophet there in the house of David. There are those who want to argue, although there's not really a major way to argue, but this phrase, just like the phrase in Malachi, Lifnei Yom Ba Hashem Agadol V'Hanora, that Malachi uses towards the end of his book, here Yoel is using it. So there are those who might say, no, this is evidence that it is a later book, that it's a early Second Temple book and not a First Temple book. But the jury is out and will remain out regarding Yoel and our knowledge of him.